So, are you having issues with 2020? Is it time to reboot your life? If you want to learn more about how to get started, how to return to greatness, this is the show to be tuned into because we're talking with Coach Papa. So let's get into the show. So hi, I know that was a quick introduction, and you are the Reboot Man. And it is really a time to reevaluate yourself, not only to look inward, but also how you can help those as well, because you're all about giving as well as coaching. Is that correct?
Well, amen. But if you look at the promo video you just put, I've rebooted my hairstyle. So I was completely bald for about 8 years, shaved it off every day. I was part of a show called Two Bald Guys and a Microphone. And with the pandemic, I just decided, you know what? I'm tired of shaving. I'm going to let it grow again. So that's the first reboot. But yeah, Tim Stewart, Coach Papa. I'm a retired infantry officer, served the United States Army for a little over 21 years. And I have done a lot of things to really help. But in identifying what do people need right now? What did I need? And it was a reboot. You know, I remember the days of IT and calling up and say, hey, my computer's not working. We got to get back online. They're like, Control, Alt, Delete, reboot, right? Like yep. One wasn't working. I'd call back. They'd say, take the battery out, put it back in, reboot. But how do we reboot our life? And that with Kent Jones, when he was the other ball guy, we started this concept of reboot. And it's an acronym. The R in reboot stands for recognize the need to make some changes in your life. The E is about
actually instead of just going there so quickly, let's kind of delve into each of them individually.
Okay. We can do that. I normally go through all three and then come back, but we can just
we can do all through all five. Here we go.
There we go. All five are up. Educate yourself, not just on how to make these changes, but who can help you out. And you think about it, how and who have the same three letters, just reorganized. The B in reboot is about creating a belief system around the changes that you want to make. The first O is update this operating system. And we update Windows 10, we update our iPhones and our Google phones, but when was the last time we did a full update to this one? The second O is orchestrate. Orchestrate your life. Stop letting life orchestrate you. It's about leadership and more about self-leadership, but we'll get into that when we get to that point. And then the T is about testing. Are these changes taking effect? And what adjustments do you need to make? So recognize. Every piece of the reboot has a three-side triangle to it. In the recognize case, the first side is professional recognition. A professional has identified something that you need to change in your life. Maybe a doctor has said you need to lose weight and exercise. A judge has said you need to quit drinking and attend meetings. A counselor has said you need to talk about your feelings so you don't explode on people. A professional has recognized you need to make some change. And as long as you're paying that professional and they're in your life, the changes seem to take effect, but they're very seldom lasting effect. The second side of the triangle is core relationships. Your core relationships are your spouse, your husband, your wife, your children, your parents, your peers, your close friends at work. Those people who will be open and honest with you and say, you need to change this. The problem is when they're core relationships and we're close to each other, quite often it turns into conflict versus real change. I know I need to lose weight. Stop telling me I need to lose weight. I'll lose weight when I'm ready. And that conflict creates larger problems. The third side of the recognition triangle is self-recognition. When the alcoholic hits rock bottom, when the jerk figures out he doesn't have any friends, when the overweight person has got a diagnosis of diabetes or heart disease. There's two things that help take us to change. It's inspiration and desperation. Desperation is when it gets to that end where if you don't do this, you're going to die. Inspiration is when you realize that now's the time before it's too late. And that self-recognition piece is when real change can be made once we get it.
Yeah, I think also you need to actually personalize that because, again, as you mentioned before, is if someone else tells you you need to change, you're not going to, not until you realize you need to change yourself. I know this is superficial, but I used to really hate tomatoes. But I love tomato sauce and I love to make ketchup. I just didn't like tomatoes until I realized I didn't like that squishy seeds inside the tomato. But after I realized that, I could overcome that fear of tomatoes.
If one I haven't worked on yet, but I wish I'd met you before so I could have that to the resume. I've helped people quit smoking with this. I've helped people find a healthier lifestyle. I've helped people grow their businesses quite a bit, but never tomatoes. Never tomatoes. The E is about educate yourself on how and who. Now, the first side of the education triangle is the media. Where is the source of the information that you can use to make these changes? And as you know, and everybody knows, we're in the information age. If anything, we have too much information sometimes, but you can find anything between a YouTube or the internet or your teenagers. God knows they know everything. But there is the information side of the triangle. The second side of the triangle is the mentor coach. Rock Trinnell said this, you may have been at the meeting. You can't read the ingredients from inside the bottle, and you can't see your life while you're living it. You need someone on the outside. There are no major changes that can happen in our life without a mentor coach in our life. Now, it doesn't have to be a coach that you've hired. That mentor might already be in your life. It might be a parent or a boss or someone that you've put on a higher platform you've idolized throughout the course of your life, a coach or someone. I still talk to my high school coach, Rex Heckenlaghley, when I get down. He's always been that guy for me. But it's important, if you have identified these changes, to vocalize them to a mentor coach person life. Say that again.
It just looks like you dropped out for there for a second. But while you're on a pause, is it important to that mentor coach person? Is it important that they've been there before? So I think it is you that has frozen up. So if you want to just reboot your entry, that might help bring you back in. So we're talking about education, and you're talking about YouTube, and Googling it, because again, I've always found that you've got to actually have trusted information when you educate yourself. So it looks, I'm going to take Tim out here for a second and see if he can come back in. So he is rebooting. This is a perfect example of rebooting yourself. So I'm going to wait until he comes back. So with this concept of coming in with new information, and you can find that mentor in your church, in your networking, in your local community. And there are a lot of people that you can actually even have be mentors and coaches without really actually having met them. There are a few people who I follow through social media and through YouTube, really, to actually get their information and have them guide me. So if I have a question, then I can just find that information that they provide. So if you are, and I'll bring Tim back in here for a second. Hi, Tim. So if you can find that either virtual coach, that virtual mentor, who can give you general information, but also important is find that one person who knows you, who can really give you that personal information. And I'm handing it back to you.
Hey, yeah, my internet completely shut off at my end and rebooted outside of my house. So someone else took care of that reboot. So having that mentor coach in your life, Tiger Woods had a swing coach. Bill Gates has a business coach. If you've identified a change you need to make in your life, and it's a major change, you need to have someone, but find someone whose personality match. Don't just get someone because it says coach in front of their name or it says counselor in front of their name. Identify someone who really makes a difference with you. The third side of the education.
Actually, before we go into that, is I think I had one question which you missed because you were rebooting. Is does that person, that personal coach, that person, the mentor, need to have been there before you, or can it just be someone who you trust with their opinion? and their guidance.
It is very important that they have been down that road. Maybe not the exact industry you've been in. Maybe you don't need a video coach to understand the video, but you might need a business coach to help on the business side of your project. So it really depends on what changes you're trying to make. If you're trying to make an overall personality change, and you need someone who has been down that road and has helped people make those changes. If it's a business or maybe a health issue, you want to identify someone who is an expert in that field. But also, there's been 2 health coach trainers I've worked with over the last couple of years, and one of them was very empathetic to my situation, who I was, my time schedule and everything else, and was very easy to work with. The other one was like a drill sergeant, and I had those for 21 years. I didn't need another guy like that. So it's making sure that you have the right person in your life. And if it's not going well, fire him. Don't, just because you paid him some money, don't think you have to maintain that, because if you're not getting the results that you want from the relationship, you need to move on.
Okay, excellent. Moving on.
The third side of the educate triangle is the methodology. We've all heard of audio, visual, kinetic, read only, but the most important methodology that we have is the mistake methodology. It's where we learn. But unfortunately, our school systems have gotten to the point where we make you afraid of making mistakes. Quite often we'll have educators in my audiences, and I'll ask them, did you ever set a student down and circle all the right answers with a pretty blue marker? No, everything's big red markers. Oh, bad, mistakes, bad. But yet, how do we learn more than anything else? We've made a mistake. And then from that mistake, we're able to move on and find success. So it's important that you're not running out to try to make mistakes, but that you do embrace them and you go over them with your mentor coach, and you identify the best way to get through those.
So where do you find that belief? Is it internal, or is it generated from your mentor?
Well, as we get into believe, it's got to be internal. You've got to be all into what you're doing. I was at a international entrepreneurs seminar about 3 years ago, and more Americans make the move into entrepreneurship than any other nationality in the world. But Indians in the great country of India, they maintain their entrepreneurship much longer. The average life of an entrepreneur of their business is about 5 years in America. In India, it's over 17 years. When they took a look at why in India, once you become an entrepreneur, you are not rehirable. You're not going to get a job. So if you've gone into business for yourself, they are not going to hire you. So you've got to be all in before you make the decision to jump in. In America, we can always go hand out cards at Walmart or do something else to supplement our income if what we're doing doesn't work. So quite often we don't go all in. That belief system is critically important. This guy built a tightrope across Niagara Falls, and thousands of people showed up, and he said, I know some of you are just here to see me fall, but how many of you believe I can walk across Niagara Falls? All this mist and noise and wind. And they're like, yeah. He goes, that's great. And he puts a wheelbarrow in front of him. He says, how many believe I can push this wheelbarrow across Niagara Falls? And they're like, yeah. He goes, that's great. Who's going to get in the wheelbarrow? And there's silence. But then this little 8-year-old boy runs up and he jumps in a wheelbarrow and he says, let's go, mister. It looks like fun. He goes, son, I can't push you across here in this wheelbarrow. He goes, why not, mister? Don't you believe? Right? Are we all in that when we have the responsibility for someone else's future, for someone else's life, we continue to do what we do? So that belief system is powerful. Once we have it ourselves, the second side of the belief triangle is our core relationships, getting our spouse and our family on board with this. Because if you're battling them to try to get something started, you're going to be shot down before you ever move. So making sure that you now have the support of your core relationships moving into it. The third side is what we call unsolicited belief. Everybody lights up a room, some by walking in, others by leaving. That unsolicited belief is when someone has that confidence in what they're doing and they walk in the room, people are drawn to them, not because of what they do, but because of the belief they have in what they do and why they do it. And it's so important that we get to that level.
So as far as the belief system and the support of your family and your co-work, or I guess your employees or your partners, is there a devil's advocate in there? And is there advantage to having, you say, because in my case, because I'm a solopreneur, I have total control over what I do and how I do it and when I do it. And in some cases, and so one of my faults is I'm a ready, aim, ready, fire, aim type person.
Fire aim, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, oh, this is a great new idea. Let's go buy the next new shiny thing. Is there a responsibility of that support system to say, step back, rethink this before you launch it?
That goes right to the coach mentor. That's why you have them in your life. When you've got something going on, and with all of my clients, we have our normal scheduled meetings, but they also have a free time throughout the week to call when something's going on. It doesn't have something bad. When they have a new idea or a new thing, I become that guy that they bounce that off from. It's so important to have that. Again, your core relationships are close to you, and you get them to buy in. Most of the time, they're not going to tell you what's going on or what's wrong. That's why it's important to have that independent voice in your life, that mentor coach.
So moving on to operating system.
In the operating system, this one, I grew up in the great state of Nebraska, born in 1955. So I have kind of an antiquated agricultural operating system going on in a 2020 technological world. And sometimes keeping up with technology is not the easiest for me. I have to really force myself to do things. But I can tell you just what happened a few minutes ago when my internet dropped out. If that would have happened 2 years ago, I just would have said, to heck with it, the interview's over, because I would have been calm enough to work through the technology and get it back. So I've updated my operating system to believe in my abilities on the technology side. Our operating system is made up of our default behaviors, our habits, and our characteristics of the second side, and our patterns. We fall into patterns and life's patterns. And to get through these things, to understand how our subconscious work, I use 3 different programs. The first one is what I call like a first aid to get out of conflict, because when we get into conflict and our body loads up with cortisol, it's difficult, if not impossible, to be creative and overcome challenges in front of you. So Chemical Brain Freeze was written by Chuck Inman, and I used the concepts from there to help get out of conflict. The Happiness Advantage, this was put together by Sean Acor, a positive psychologist out of Harvard University. And this goes into 5 things you need to do for 21 days to begin reprogramming your subconscious to expect positive outcomes. And when we expect positive outcomes, we get them. And the third piece is affirmations from Noah St. John. Noah St. John is one of those guys who was my personal coach, one of the guys that I go to. We're understanding how to achieve my goals in the time or before the time I've expected. And working with Noah, I've achieved more goals in a shorter time period than I ever thought possible. So I use these 3 to help reprogram and get the operating system on track to expect success, because when we expect success, we begin to find success. It's kind of a unique opportunity. So in the operating system, we begin with the power habits, learning to control our habits, learning to identify our default behaviors. And once, again, in recognition, there is healing. Once we can recognize something that we're doing incorrectly, we can fix it. But if we don't see it, if we don't recognize it, it never gets fixed. And in the operating system, these are the things that I go through.
And so with the operating system, your mindset, your education, your background, and your habits is, as you mentioned, if you haven't done it before, it's going to be really difficult to do it in the future. So you're using that education system to, and almost like what rote memory is, if you do it enough, it becomes automatic. I heard one time is it takes 3 weeks to develop a good habit or develop a habit, but like 11 weeks to break a bad habit?
There's some truth to that. Now, Stephen Covey had his thing, 21 days to make a habit, 7 days to break it. Those are habits you make intentionally. So I want to intentionally. On the flip side of that, there are the habits, and really what you're talking about is default behaviors. Default behaviors is what take 11, 12-week time period to overcome. And a default behavior is something that's with you from a very young age. You know, you might have a guy and he's a brilliant guy, but he had a abusive childhood, you know, and he's overcome all of that. And then one day he's with someone and someone just reaches up to grab something off to the shelf and he flinches. That's a default behavior that is built in and it comes out in crisis. How many people in this crisis of this pandemic have reacted very poorly? Those are default behaviors that have been suppressed for a very long time until this current crisis has brought them out. So crisis is really what brings default behaviors to the surface, and identifying those before they become a problem, and then learning to replace them with other behaviors is a very challenging thing, but it's one of the most rewarding pieces of my job.
Okay, so which takes us back to recognizing your issues in order to overcome them. Moving on to orchestrate. Describe that for us.
Absolutely. Orchestrate is really about leadership. Now, as a senior drill instructor for the officer candidate school, I created a lot of leaders in the United States Army. And outside of that coaching, I've coached over 5,000 athletes in athletics. We develop a lot of leadership. And I've taught a lot of people how to lead a lot of other people. But what I missed along the way was how to lead myself. You see, as an entrepreneur, I have a staff of 3. Me, myself, and I. And what I found out is those other 2 guys aren't listening very well. One of them likes chasing squirrels. The other one's playing games on his phone. And I got to orchestrate this whole thing to try to be successful in business. So we'll go into really some in-depth leadership in communication styles, and not just communication with others. So one side is leadership. Second side of the triangle is communication. The third side of the angle is action. There are 3 frogs sitting on a log, and one decides to jump off. How many are left? You know, most people will say 2, but there's 3. You see, he only decided to jump off. He never took action. But now there are 3 frogs sitting on a log. One decides to jump off, and he does jump off. Now how many are left? And most people will say 2 again, but the answer is none, because when a leader takes action, everyone else follows. So the leadership piece, where we will teach and go through and break down what leadership is and how important it is to be a leader in your life. And you're like, well, I'm not a leader. Well, if you're a parent, you're automatically a leader. If you're on your local community board, you're a leader. If you're just walking your dog, you're a leader. And understanding leadership concepts really helps. On the communication side and with self-leadership, we do a lot of work on how we talk to ourselves. How many people could be tossed in jail for the way they talk to themselves, or at least we have a suit filed against them for defamation of character. We have to learn to respect ourselves before we can respect and lead others. And then the third side is taking action. You know, count down to put these changes into effect, identifying a date, and then, you know, making sure that we make those things happen.
And so what is that first step? Because I know with making plans and leadership, is leadership something you write down and plan for, or is it something that you just kind of fall into and assume?
Bruce, I want you to work with me here, and anybody else who's watching. Would you make a circle with your thumb and forefinger just like this? Now put that on your chin. What I ask you to do very clearly.
There you go.
Where'd I ask you to put that?
On my chin.
On your chin. Is your chin all the way up on the side of your face? No, it's not. You put it here because you followed the actions that I took, not the words that I said. And it's important as a leader that your actions and your words match. Otherwise, people will always follow your actions and seldom follow your words. So the communication and leadership go hand in hand. Leadership is simply doing the right things for the right reasons all the time. It's not a title. It's not a desk. It's not a position. Sometimes the janitor is the best leader in the organization. The receptionist, best leader in an organization. Everybody else reaps the benefits, but they're the ones who hold the place together. And sometimes they'll tell you all about it. So yeah, it's the leadership piece is all centers around learning to set a positive example.
And that's also what we've done with speaking of video and visual reinforcement is what if you read it, you retain maybe 10% of it.
Yep.
If you hear it, it's like 20%. If you see it, it's like 40%. But if you see it and hear it, then it's like 60, 70, 80%.
If you see it, hear it, touch it, and do it, it's like 95% retention. Any one of those by themselves is like 10%. So it's a synergistic effect of having all the pieces. A lot of times they cut the role playing out of presentations because, it used to be a 3-hour presentation, but we got to get all this information across in an hour. And it doesn't work because all you're doing is giving information. That's logic and people shut it off. But we have to touch the emotions. Kent and I refer to ourselves as edutainers, educational entertainers. Guaranteed you're going to have fun while you're learning. So if you don't learn, at least you had fun. So we're going to be laughing, we're going to be enjoying, but while we're laughing and doing things, we're locking in lessons along the way and getting you to the point where you want to be. Once we've identified what success is for you, then it's just a matter of sticking to the plan and sticking to the path.
Yeah, because last week I took a 5-day challenge on email and I did most of the exercises, but here it is, week 2 after the program's over, and I'm back into my old habits. So it's basically doing it in repetition, doing it and follow through. You talked about the frogs, is if you really contemplate it, but don't actually execute it, you're back where it's square one.
Well, and that's why, like, if you notice I got to point this way, there it is. If you notice my Facebook group called tmpfe, or the missing piece for entrepreneurs. And where that came from is we're all missing a piece. We're all close to success, but we're missing that piece. Growing up on a farm in Nebraska during the wintertime, we'd put puzzles together. That was our art. We'd make a puzzle, we'd put lacquer over it, and then we'd frame it, and we all had puzzles up on our walls. And it was a big deal. Well, everybody fought to put the last piece in the puzzle. Well, one year we got all done. There was a piece missing. And everybody's going, oh, there's a piece missing. And Grandma reaches in her pocket and pulls it out and puts it in. And big smile. We're like, Grandma. But it started a new tradition. Whenever we'd break out a new puzzle, everybody took a piece and put it someplace, hid it someplace. So when we got down to the end, everybody'd go get their piece and we'd put them all together. And it was just kind of a fun tradition. We did that twice. And then the third time, after we all put our pieces in, there was still a piece missing. We're like, Grandma, and you know I didn't do anything. Well, Mom was getting ready to break the puzzle up because she needed the card table for stuff. It was a family dinner. And as she wiped her hand across the top of it, the piece was camouflaged perfectly right on top of the puzzle. And she screamed. She goes, I found it. And you would have thought we won the lottery, man. Everybody's like, yeah, we found the missing piece. Well, we all have a missing piece. And on the Facebook group, this is a free group, I go into the missing piece for entrepreneurs. So every day I post a 2 or 3 minute video that gives one piece, with the thought being, if you listen for 365 days, you may find that piece that you're missing. But if you want to get it quicker, if you want to get there, I have another group that people come to called Transforming Together. Transforming Together is my paid coaching group where we come in, we bring people together, and they get all this training, the reboot training, in a 12-week program. The first 5 weeks of the program, they get all the reboot. The last 7 weeks of the program are practical application. Every week we go into how have you used these this week, with the idea being that we now are going to use it. We've all read self-help books. We've all read all kinds of things. And wow, that's a really great idea. And it goes right back on the shelf. The concept with the missing piece for entrepreneurs and Transforming Together is now we're going to apply the lessons. All the lessons aren't going to apply to everybody. You may be really good at some of these things, but then there might be that one day you're going, oh, yeah, that's the one. And it's going to help you get to that next level.
Great. And so here I pulled up the YouTube channel, or I'm just the Facebook channel there. And so you just type in tmpfe.
tmpfe.
Yep.
The missing piece for entrepreneurs, obviously an acronym, the first letter of each word. Join the group. Come on in. This is a free group. I already actually have posted our interview is playing right now on their live, and you're
also an international star because you were. This was earlier this week.
Yeah, I was on Friday last week with Nyapingo Sheila. She is from Nairobi, Kenya. She has a site called The Winning Attitude in Life, and I was interviewed out of Kenya last Friday with this whole program. It's making a difference around the world, and it can make a difference from This is 2020. And hindsight is always 2020. This is the year of looking back to move forward. This is a year of looking back to figure out what do I need to change and how can those changes be positive. In recognition, there is healing. In recognition, there is healing. No one goes to the doctor and says, hey, doc, I got cancer. Can you fix me? They go into the doctor and say, oh, my shoulder hurts. Oh, I can't breathe. Something's going on. The doctor goes through a series of tests and then comes up with a diagnosis and then a program to help them heal. In recognition, there is healing. And that's my role in this, is to help you recognize what needs to change in your life and then be there for you while you're making those changes to make sure that they're a long-lasting change and not just a temporary.
So any sort of program is pretty useless unless you actually go back and analyze it.
Amen. And that's the test. And the test is just, the first side is the metrics. What are your measurements? Is it likes on Facebook? Is it cars in the garage? Is it money in the bank? What is telling you that you're being successful? Your metrics are different than my metrics, and mine are different from someone else. But the second side of the triangle is interpreting those metrics. How are they working? Where are those numbers coming from? How can I, work this? If it's a weight loss thing, it's the scale. If it's a friend thing, maybe it likes on Facebook. If it's a business thing, then we can help. One of the individuals that I work with, I've been working with him for about 3 years. His business was doing $300,000 in revenue for almost 25 years. And in the last 3 years of working together, we've crossed $1 million in revenue for his company now, simply by changing the way he was thinking. Did nothing for his business. I didn't even know his business that well. I know what he did, but I certainly don't know how to do it. But helping him think and see differently how business is going to be done. Success lies right outside your comfort zone. And sometimes it takes somebody to encourage you to step off that diving board, to, do that thing that you're worried about or scared about. And that's my role. And then the third side of the test triangle is simply, what's your recovery plan? Here's my metrics. They're okay. They're not what I would like. Here's the interpretation. That's really not what I like. What is my recovery plan? How am I going to get back on track? I really want these changes to be lasting and long-term. And so we go through the whole reboot, and at the end of it, we're transformed into the person that we really want to be and getting the success that we so richly deserve.
I was talking with another, I think it was a consultant for a business, and he goes in there and he designs their productivity plan and they adhere to it. And then 3 months later, there's some cuts or some time restraints, and they cut out one portion. And then 6 months later, they cut out another portion. And a year later, it's no longer even there. How often do you need that recoaching, that rebooting of a reboot?
Well, and here's how my program's different. I don't write your productivity plan. I don't write because it's my plan. I mean, maybe I can see because I'm a visionary on the outside, but this is my plan. And if it's my plan, it's only going to work until it doesn't. And then when it stops, it's going to be, oh, that idiot. So what we do is we do two things. Number one, we identify why are you doing what you do? Not what do you do, why? Why are you doing what you do? We find the starting point. Then we find success. What does success look like to you? If you haven't taken the time to write success down, it's bigger houses, faster cars, more money, prettier, whatever it is, more handsome guys, whatever it is a default success. And that's not success. You have to define success. And that's one of the exercises I go. So when we have the why and we have the success, and now the plan looks like this. And about the third month in, there's a dip. You know, it's interesting you said 3 months, because there's always a little fall off. And we have that meeting at that point and say, hey, you said you wanted this and you were willing to do this to get there, and you developed the plan with my help and guidance, and now you're not doing it. What's going on? Do we need to adjust success, or do we need to adjust your activities? And it becomes real. And then they make the adjustments based on their seeing it, not because I'm seeing it. Just like a teenager, you tell a teenager to do something, they'll say no. You know, if you work with them and you get their input on it, then they will knock themselves out getting it done. You've got to be able to do it. And in my coaching style, I'm helping you achieve. As an athletic coach, I can't go on the field and play the game. Why do my business clients want me to get into their business and do their business for them? I can't do your business, but I can coach you on how to do your business, how to become a better person within your business.
Yeah, so I found this one quote on the internet. I'm not sure if you might agree with this.
She says, I'll be there shortly. And I say, that's the only way you can go anywhere. I'm smarter than my wife. I can prove it. I'll say it right here on the internet. I'm smarter than her, and she'll never argue with me. I married her. She married me. I'm definitely the smarter one in this relationship. She was a nurse. She just retired recently, and she's the most amazing grandmother and wife on the planet.
And so how do we find you? There's a couple of sites. There's your website, but I think where your best is the Facebook page, and your actually this is your YouTube channel, right?
That's my YouTube channel. That'll get into my YouTube channel. I'm working on populating it. I need a coach to help me figure out how to get all my videos into YouTube. And actually, I've just recently figured it out. So it's just a matter of taking the time and now moving all my videos into my YouTube channel.
But I think the main spot for you is probably Facebook and LinkedIn, right?
Right. That my LinkedIn site is a lot of my new clients and new work is coming out of my LinkedIn site. And the missing piece for entrepreneurs, the site that you were just at a couple of seconds ago. On these two places, I post all of my daily videos. And with these daily videos, I again try to just make that connection. Then if there's a deeper level connection, someone wants to really dive into it and achieve, then we're going into transforming together. Transforming together are groups of 10. They're never larger than 10. I try not to make them smaller than 10. But those 10 people, those are private Facebook groups. Nothing that happens there it's kind of like little Las Vegas is. What happens in transforming together stays in transforming together. But the reason I call it transforming together is, you know, at times I learn as much from the people in the room as they're learning from me. I start the conversation, but then we transform together because all of us are looking to move. It's a win-win-win process where at the end of the day, we're all leaving a little bit better than when we walked in.
Yeah, so as far as LinkedIn goes, like last week we had Vivica von Rosen, the LinkedIn expert on, and actually you're actually embracing the using of your LinkedIn channel.
I've written a novel. I've actually written 4 books, and now that I found video, I thought, wow, this is so much easier. I don't have to do all this typing. I can just use video. And then what I find out is if you're not actually commenting, if you're not putting the words in by watching your video, your rating isn't as high and it's not moving as far through. So you know, it's doggone it. I actually have to get back to the keyboard and put some of this stuff in writing to make sure it's getting the connection. I didn't realize their algorithm worked off of those different point values, and I'm very appreciative of that interview.
Yeah, actually, I pulled up last week and I pulled up here. This is kind of arbitrary. I talked this over with Vivica about the point system, and I think that overall the concept here is engage and be active on the platform.
Yes. Yeah, when you're acting daily, when you're like the 3 frogs, when you take action, everything else falls into place.
So great. Thank you. It's been great. Let's put up the 5 pieces, or actually 6 pieces. I called 5 earlier. I looked at that O twice. It was Rebot.
But it's recognize, educate, believe. The first O is this operating system. The second O is orchestrate your life. Stop letting life orchestrate you. And then test. Make sure you're following these changes, because if you stop testing, the changes will fade away, and we'll get back to our default behaviors.
Definitely. And that is the thing, is you testing, analytics, that what gets measured gets done.
Yes.
So if you're not measuring it, there's a concept out there, SMART goals, which
specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
Definitely.
But in the operating system, when I get into Noah St. John and affirmations, we multiply the speed of goal achievement through the use of affirmations and putting your brain on your side. Now, Sheila just checked in on the comments. Sheila is following us in Nairobi, Kenya right now. She was the person who interviewed me on Friday. So, hi.
Well, we're now international because we've had guests here from Canada and now Africa.
I will connect you two, because I think you could both benefit from interviewing each other on your shows, because she's just incredible. You're incredible, and I really enjoy.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for being here. And so one last call to action is, so right here I'm going to post a link to Coach Papa's YouTube channel, as well as my YouTube channel. And then over there is going to be a link to one of our favorite videos, or one of your favorite videos, based on the YouTube algorithm. So thank you all for being here, and see you next week.